deleted.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Even better. So yeah. So Richard and I, we often pontificate about the state of education, and we talk about a lot of things. And so one of the things that we talked about was is there's not a lot of substance, and there's not a lot of discussion around education, um, from an educator's perspective. I know sometimes I get sucked into the world of what's the deal when you scroll? Is that hey, I'm an educator just went dumb. Not Twitter, not tweeting, TikTok. Um and yeah, sometimes it's kind of scroll through TikTok, you see different blogs and podcasts, and they're not talking about anything. And it's just a lot that plagues our community, a lot that plagues our world, especially in the realm of education that we felt like, you know, we can talk too. I mean, if Cam Newton can sit and talk with a bow tie in his head, or
Okay.
and talk about 7-on-7 football, why can't we talk about pedagogy, black male achievement in general, just topics that are important to us and important to our community from our perspective. And I feel like a good friend of mine says that I feel like we have a qualified opinion.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, and I
All
think
right, now,
Go ahead, Kamisha.
go ahead,
no, I
girl.
was saying, what's your name? What's your name? What do you do? Why are you here? What are we here for?
Oh, so what's my name? You know my name. My name is Dion Witten. Um, I am what I do. Uh, I'm just I'm an educator, and I'm a youth advocate. How I do that is through a couple different ways. Um, my wife and I, we own a transitional home for boys aging out of foster care. And then
Oh,
also I work with Richard as a dean of students of a local charter school. Um, and we also do a bunch of other stuff in the community. But I think I've come to, by happenstance and just by a lot of stuff, I've come to realize that my purpose and passion in this world is in the area of education and building and uplifting our youth. I think I've come to realization that that's what I was put on this earth to do. That's what God has gifted me to do, and I just have a responsibility in actualizing that gift. Um, I would say for me, why I'm here today is the long short of it is my grandfather. My grandfather passed in March. Kamisha did the video, but his death really affected me. I he was the prominent male figure in my life for a lot of my life, and I saw him every day. And when he died, I was there with him when he died. I was there at his deathbed when he died, and
mm-hmm.
it really just him dying just really just kind of brought the finality. It's kind of just brought the reality of mortality, and so I almost feel an obligation to like birth out everything that he birthed in me that I can't sit on, and so that's kind of the genesis of the 48-hour rule that I'm sure we'll talk about at some point in time, and just kind of a lot of stuff that me and Richard got in motion, that have kind of put in motion here in actually a relatively short period of time. And even us sitting here talking about that, just us having a discussion on an unknown platform, I feel like it's somewhat of a result of that. So yeah, it's my ministry and just kind of dedication to everybody that's laid the foundation of my life is why I'm here talking right
That's
now.
what's up. And what do you do, Richard?
My boy. Um, I do
Yeah,
I do a lot of things. I do a lot of things.
yeah,
First, I'm just glad to be in this space. I'm glad. I'm honored that to be with you two to have a conversation and see that conversation actualized so fast. Like we really walking in purpose, and I spent so much of my life with these great ideas, and on the shoulda, woulda, coulda been, and here within the past couple months, um, God has really been moving. Like, not just make that action, just take that step, and things just popping. Like we talked about it Saturday, and here it is Monday. We got something going on. So who am I? I talk a lot. Who am I? I am Richard Abram. Uh, I am an educator. I choose to serve in education. Um, I wanted to be an actor when I was little, a comedian. I used to be in a little dance group. I had about 7 majors in college. Uh, None of them panned out the way I thought they would. Uh, it took me 12 years to graduate college. It's a lot of things. I'm a father, husband, all the black man stuff. But I think I'm here in this particular space because as I get older and I reflect, I want to add value to education because education saved it legit saved my life. Because before I grew up deep in the education, I was just working at UPS and Piggly Wiggly, and then I found education. I began to find success, and my life has been so much better since then. It's the easiest, the number one tool. It's the best bet for some success is in education. I wish I would have had that earlier.
Yeah.
And so I say a lot like my big homies failed me. My big homies let me uh, do a lot of things that I shouldn't have been doing. Nothing crazy, but they didn't hold me accountable. And so now I want to make sure if anybody says, "Oh, Rich was in my life," they're gonna say I made a positive impact. They're gonna say I gave them some game. They're gonna say that their life is better because of me. I choose to be uh, such a strong advocate because I got 2 sons and 2 daughters, and
Yeah.
I see so much of the good attributes of myself in them, and I also see some of those other things of the shyness, the timidness, um, sometimes lacking self-esteem. When you're the brightest in the room, and I won't let them have to learn the hard way. Like when I look at my daughter, she's 15 and she's it to me. She the it girl. Like she got it, uh, and I want to make sure that she knows she got it. My son, my oldest son, he my pops left when we were 7, right? And so
Yeah.
I had my big brothers trying to raise me. You know, I had the big homies in the neighborhood. I had the, you know what I mean? But it wasn't like nothing like daddy's guidance. And if I was half of who my son is now, you couldn't tell me nothing. This dude, he's it. I say all the time, people think, oh, you just saying that. He is my wildest dreams come true. If I could be anybody in the world, it would be him. And
Yeah.
so my passion, my job is to make sure my kids can be whatever they want to be, however they want to be it, and ain't nobody gonna stop them. And so I took that passion and said, what about the kids who don't have daddy, who don't have Richie in their life, who don't have me living with them at home? They need some of this
Yeah.
too. So I give what I can to everybody. So it's some
That's
who am I?
dope.
I'm a mentor. And I always tell people, don't be better than me, be better. And that's kind of how I live my life. Be better than me. What are you doing to be better? Every day I'm gonna push somebody. I don't care who you are. Big homie, little homie, 360-degree leadership. Whether you my boss or a subordinate, we're gonna get this together. And that's just I live unapologetically to make people better.
That's dope.
That's
That's
it.
dope.
Yeah. My grandfather would say, I insist on being the dumbest person in this family. That
And he
was
was
that
smart
was dope.
too.
Okay.
Huh?
Tell them about some of your grandfather's acumen so they can get context to that.
Oh, so my grandfather, he ended up say he I would say I would say he had a similar story. No, I wouldn't say similar. So my grandfather, he the one that passed away, the one that had the best influence on me. He worked at he retired at the age of 50. He worked at Allied Signal, which eventually was Honeywell. And so
Oh, I didn't know
he
that.
yeah, so Honeywell ended up buying Allied Signal. He was a numerical control analyst. Um and he went to Harvard. I'm not Harvard. He went to did some training at MIT, did CAD, just did a lot of stuff in the engineering space. A lot of the guys that started the Du Bois Foundation, the Du Bois Learning Center, he went to work with them. Um, he was just a huge advocate on education. I think, but that wasn't something that was natural to him. I would say if I had to compare, just comparatively speaking, like within this conversation, I'd say he was a lot like Richard. He was a smart guy. He just didn't have the guidance. So my great grandfather, um, and from the standpoint my great grandfather, he was like a street legend in KCK. So he
That's
ran he ran
le-
nah, that was this is my Leroy's my grandmother's father. My
Okay.
grandfather's father was Wallace Ford. So
Okay.
he had a juke joint. He ran, he had a juke joint. He ran dice games. He did all the street stuff. And my grandfather was kind of he didn't have the same personality as him, so he observed and he learned a lot, but he knew street. Um, when he was in his 20s, he had an opportunity to go into an apprenticeship. Um, when he was in that apprenticeship, that's when he was exposed to black engineers and at Allied Signal, and so seeing them sparked within him just an importance of education that he passed on to his kids. My grandmother, his mother, my great grandmother, she ended up going back to college in her 60s.
In her
She,
60s?
yeah, she graduated. They had a
That's
news
dope.
article. Yeah, she did the whole college experience in her 60s. She stayed on campus, stayed in the
Yeah.
dorms, got her 4-year degree, and then she ended up graduating with an early childhood education. My grandmother, my mother's mother, she worked for the Department of Education, and also taught fifth grade. And her father, Leroy Toombs, he was a black millionaire business consultant, founded the Black Chamber of Commerce. Um, my mom is a professor, so education's all over. But my grandfather, he really, he just spit a lot of game, and a lot of his game was a combination of just practical wisdom as well as acquired knowledge that he got from people around him. And then so he was kind of like, I don't know if you think of it like how like the personality of his father was like a street guy, but he didn't have the personality of that, but he was always with him, so he observed a lot, and so he always wanted to push his kids in the opposite direction of that because he saw the effect of that. And so like education was always like, he would always say there's not a hill for a stepper. He would check my homework every night. He would say, I want to be the dumbest person in this family. Um, it was just like being smart was just like, you ask a question, like articulate yourself. Wasn't no yes or no questions. You gotta use complete sentences, stuff like that. So yeah, I can talk all day about that guy, but yeah, education was just that's what it was. But so and that's why I said compared speaking, like what I meant by saying he was like you, Richard, was in the effect that you've always were smart, but it was just when you surrounded yourself with people that had that educational value and you saw success in that, I can see the similar
Yeah.
motivation in that with him.
But like here, like, cause I know like when you talk about your grandpa and the people in your life, and you talk so
Yeah,
highly about them. When you said that, I got a
yeah,
little choked up. I got a little choked
yeah,
up because I know how much you like
Yeah, yeah.
value
yeah.
other people, the things that
It's
they
funny
poured
you
into
said that
you.
because
In that
it's
same breath, that's big time. It's big time
yeah,
for you.
no, I appreciate that. Yeah, and honestly, like it's funny you said that because this is probably the first time I've ever like talked about him this much since he's died and not choked up. Like I was having a conversation with I was telling Kamisha earlier today. I was meeting with a guy we went to school with. We kind of writing this play about, and it's gonna be based on kind of work we do at the group home, and I was telling, and my wife was like, um, she was like, man, you trying to change the world, and I'm like, and I told her, I was choked up. I said when Granddaddy died, it did something to me. It kind of
Mhm.
like it was like I saw an interview with Dame Dash, and he talks about like he basically said something like when he was talking about Rockefeller, and but one thing he said when his mother died, that was his worst fear. And so
Mm.
once he died, he became fearless because his worst fear, like it was nothing. And that's honestly how I feel about
Mm.
my grandfather. So like when he
Yeah,
died, like that's literally like the worst. That's other than like my mother, but like my grandfather's like the worst thing. So like now it's like he imparted all this, and I got to get all this out because number one, I know I'm gonna die like him. Like that's just what it is. Like that brought that like really, really. to the forefront of my mind, and then to not pull out, bring out what he put in,
Yeah,
it would
yeah.
be a disservice to his legacy.
Yeah, yeah.
So you just
That's
come from a line of greatness, so you have no choice but to be great.
Yeah, I guess so. I guess you could say, yeah. You know what? Yes,
I
that's
mean,
true. Yeah,
because
I have
word
to,
on the street, you came from the Potato King too.
Potato
yeah,
King.
yeah, and
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. I'm embracing that now, and I think if I'm being honest, I spent a lot of my life running away from
yeah,
that and trying to and just not wanting to be different. Like, oh, that's them, that's not me. Or yeah, I can do it, but I'm different. But now I think God is kind of repurposing, reshaping like the importance of like not hiding your light under a bushel. But I and
yeah.
I think the way that He's done that is surrounding me with people like yourselves that help me, um, that are helping me kind of actualize that.
So what's up
yeah.
with this
And I
this
wonder, like,
podcast? Like, what's up
what,
with this? What is Voices of Change? Like, why does it matter? Like, why do you feel like we have to listen to you? Like, what's the point?
what for me,
Go ahead,
for
Rich.
me, I think it's because, like, like Dion said, everybody's got a story, right? And so I could pick some
Yeah,
similarities from Dion's story, but we had a lot of stark differences in some areas. But like when we I ran for my gift, right? Like, oh, everybody, oh, this Richie, this college boy. Even when I was in like sixth grade, and I'm like, man, I ain't that smart. Knowing I was the smartest dude in the block, but that wasn't cool, So I ran from like, is being smart cool, to the point of my like academic detriment in high school. And it took a lot for me to get back that space. My mom, my sister, my wife kind of got me to that, and so through these experiences, I had a experiences all across the board, right? Um, and through these different experiences, I feel like there's like a relatability. First off, I ain't gonna hold you. I'm mad charming. I'm a charming dude. Look at the smile. You see it.
okay,
I've
okay,
been this way my
okay.
whole life.
Yeah,
I've been this way. I can charm my way out of a box. I've been this way my whole life. Um,
yeah,
and so
yeah.
when me and Dion be talking sometimes, and we're talking with sometimes in this space, people are too smart for themselves, and it's just like people are just kind of boastful on their academic acumen and their degrees, and they doing this, and they doing that, and it's like they just talking in a circle, and nobody wants to hear that. Or you're not bringing no change, so you just doing a bunch of talking, and then you leave the room, and ain't nothing happen, right? And that's what I
Yeah,
experienced
yeah,
as a kid. A bunch of people talking, and nobody make nothing happen.
yeah,
You know what I mean? So
yeah,
either you're not relatable because you're like mad
yep.
corny, right? You just talking in circles because you feel like you're better than somebody else, or you just flat out don't get it. You know what I mean? So it's like I think like Dion and I bring a
or
strong combination of all that.
or they want that temporary notoriety.
Oh
You know
yeah.
what I mean? Like, yeah, too many incidents that may happen over in like KCK or wherever.
Hmm.
Then there's like this half rally for change, but
Mm-hmm.
then after it hits the news, it's like, all right, well, what happened to the people? It's
What
it's
happened?
over. That's it. They're not mad no more. They go back to
Right.
normal life, and that's it.
Yeah, and we don't want it to be going back to normal. We want to be. We talked about it. We got some different perspectives. Maybe somebody come in and put us on game and teach us something that we don't know. We're sponges to the
Right.
information, or maybe we can drop the knowledge, and then we can have a space where some changes being made, some voices being heard, and people could keep it real. Because there are spaces where what I mean. I gotta put the big words on, and sometimes as and some people do put me on a little pedestal that I don't deserve. But sometimes when I let my hair down, I'm like, man, this fool's tripping. You know what I mean? I want to talk a
Yeah,
little, a
Yeah.
little, a
yeah,
little, a little smack. So I think
Right.
this platform provides that safe space to express your ideas, for us to push, rally, and change for education, and just to keep it real. That's when the most
yeah,
authentic conversations come about when you're not trying to perform for your peers or perform for the masses or the powers that be. You can just say what it is, and then we can get
Hmm.
to the
yeah,
root of
yeah,
some issues, we can make some changes. Release.
yeah. I mean, they always say that I don't know if one person can really make a difference. Do you feel like it can be that? Like, can one person really make a difference, or do you really need a
Absolutely.
village to make it happen?
Both of those are true at the same time.
Yeah,
Both of those
one
are true.
person. Yeah, both. I agree. I think it's a both and. One person. I mean, throughout history, there's always one person. I mean, Martin Luther King was one person. I think one person has the power to catalyze and mobilize a mass
Yeah,
group of people to make change on a global scale. Now, could Martin Luther King go to every sit-in? Could he go to every bus boycott? Could he? No, absolutely not. He had to have supporting members and players that galvanized and rallied around the concept. But I think that one person taking that step, um, definitely has the ability to catalyze and change the world. And I just think that and I think history is littered with that. And I think a lot of it is just having that faith of a mustard seed. Um,
yeah,
like you said, even us just being in this space, this came from an organic conversation. What was that, last Saturday?
yeah,
Um,
yeah. Right.
you
That was
know,
fast.
it was fast. Me and Richard, I'm sure you were at the presentation. Us
Yeah,
presenting at Amplify, was just us having a conversation in the parking lot of Kaufman, of
that's dope.
hey, let's do the 48-hour rule. And then we mobilized and executed on that. And
Now, what's
then
the 48-hour rule? What's that?
Give him the
so
snippet. Don't give him the whole thing. Just drop a little taste of it.
little taste.
Little
You have an idea. You got 48 hours to do something with that idea, or you don't talk about it anymore.
I like it.
It
It
just
holds
it
you accountable. I
yeah,
like it.
yeah,
Lots of pressure.
yeah. And the thing about it is, I think for me, I think like Richard made a good point. Like, there was so much stuff that so many ideas and so much stuff that I had on the fence, that you kind of get stuck in the cycle of always about to, or reminiscing, or
Yep.
thinking about doing it or not
Yep.
doing it, that
Yep.
that you end up not doing nothing. and
Or you
and
plan too much. You
yeah,
sit
or
there and
you or
take
you
a whole year or 6 months to plan,
right,
and you still never do it.
and you could have done 20 other things, but you
Yeah.
but you're
Yeah.
fixated on this one concept. So yeah,
Yeah.
we put ourselves we put ourselves organically on a self-imposed 48-hour rule. And just from that, we were able to present and amplify, but the presentation wasn't the important part. The information and some of the wisdom and knowledge that we were able to do from that was
Yeah.
important. My mother, I
Yeah.
was having Dr. Ford is my mom, if you didn't know. So Dr. Ford is my
Okay.
mom, and from that, she's spoken at 3 or 4 different conferences since then. Um,
That's dope.
yeah, so just movement and action. That's going to the earlier question. That's what I hope comes about from from our discussions in our podcast, is action. I
Yeah.
think so many times in our community, the community of African Americans, the community of educators in general, we talk and pontificate too much
Yeah.
when we just have to move. One of the things that me and Richard talked about was, there's no reason why you have a conference or you have a room full of educated black people and you don't come out with a spaceship or the next
Yeah. Yeah.
blah blah blah. Uh, it's fun to do
Yeah.
the to be a dance and two step, but we gotta
Yeah.
make some. It's too many issues plaguing our community for there not to be continual change, and there's too many dope, smart, and intelligent individuals just within our, like Richard grew up on 4th Street. We went to Sumner, just with just within a
Yeah.
few mile radius. There's greatness.
greatness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So I got a question. So, both of you guys are black male educators. How important is that for your children to see faces that not only look like them, but also, of the male? I mean, a lot of times it's female teachers. We barely see male teachers. That just ain't a
Right,
thing for real.
right.
So I mean, how much do you guys carry that, on your shoulders? Is that a thing of pride? I mean, like, tell me about that.
You want
I
to go?
definitely, yeah, yeah. I carry this part. I'll maybe on another thing I'll drop like the actual like the resources and references to all this, but studies show that having a male teacher increases grades, increases attendance, and promotes a positive culture. Studies show that having a black teacher increases student grades, student outcomes, promotes positive culture. Studies show that exponentially having a black male educator
Yeah.
increase the chance of that student being academically successful, increase positive culture, increase that student going to college or whatever their vocation is. And so, yeah, I carry this a sense of pride because I know even just my presence is a blessing. That's what I tell folks. I'm getting real cocky, but just me in the room makes a difference. And not being like
Yeah.
sexist or machismo or none of that, but that's just the reality, right? So we bring a different presence. We bring a different level of
Yeah.
accountability. Um, heck, there's even data that says like when the father's in the home with young daughters, just the pheromones he emits, she starts her cycle later. So they'll start their cycle around 13, 14, 15, sometimes even instead of 10 and 11, just because of the pheromones that the father emits, it makes that young lady start her cycle later. So there's like biological factors in place, right? So like me being in the room,
Okay.
it changes the room. It legit changes the room. And I'm going to hold you accountable because also it's a passion of mine. And I'm going to know how to hold you
Yeah.
accountable because it's also a skill that I've acquired through my experience. So when I step into a place, learning's going to happen. You ain't got no choice. That's what I'm here for. I'm here to make sure learning happens. I'm here to make sure development happens. I want you to be able to take whatever we teach in this class and take it outside these four walls and be an amazing citizen and whatever you want to do. And so I do take pride in being a black
Yeah.
male educator. I take pride in being a father.
That's
I
what's
take
up.
pride in being a husband. I tell kids like when my sister when when me and my wife got married and we had our first daughter, and then my sister said, you know what? I think you the first one of the people I know who had a baby. I was married. And we was like, dang, yeah. And I kind of think about it. I don't know too many
Yeah.
of our friends who like kids
Something
that was
like
like
a
married
big
at that.
deal, right?
Yeah.
Right.
I'm like, that's crazy. That's crazy. But that's just the reality of it,
That's
you
real.
know?
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
real.
And so, yeah, I think we would do a disservice if we didn't embrace that mantle. And I embrace it and
Hmm.
Yeah.
I carry
Yeah.
it. And since I started carrying it and embracing it, my life has changed
Yeah.
dramatically because I know who I am, what I am, and why I am. And so, yeah, you're going to get all this academic work. It's going to make you a better person in the end. Like me, hate me, love me. I don't care. You're going to be a better person. You know what the
Yeah.
kids say? Oh, mama. Oh, my mama, you're going to be.
Okay.
I'm trying to
Okay.
connect with the indigenous youth. I'm trying to connect. One
Yeah.
more piece and I'm going to stop talking. Because my grandma, she told me, everybody in my family says this. My grandma say, inch by inch, life's a cinch. But yard by yard, things get hard. So we just taking a chunk at a time. We got an idea, let's move on it.
Okay.
We're gonna have the whole
I
Yeah.
master
like it,
plan, but let's take it. Let's do something. Do
man.
inch by inch by inch.
Yeah.
Life's a cinch. And we're gonna figure
Yeah.
this thing on out. And kind of to Dion's point to the title of the podcast, Voices of Change. We're not just gonna be talking. We're gonna change. Even if the change is you going out doing something a little bit different. I want to see some action behind these conversations that we're having. And it's
Yeah.
gonna impact somebody. I am gonna change the world. I have changed the world. I've been in education for 15, 16 years. Some of the kids I worked
Wow.
with, they grown and got kids. And when I see them now, oh, what's up, Mr.
Really?
Amos? Like, man,
You old,
I
bro.
was out here. I mean, but if I'm 25 and I'm working with high schoolers, they ain't nothing but 7, 8,
Yeah,
9 years.
yeah,
You
that
know,
ain't that.
younger than me. They in their
Right.
late 20s, early
Yeah.
30s now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they're like,
Yeah.
yo, I
Yeah.
remember when you said this. I remember when you did that. And
Yeah.
that is because I walk in the authority that I'm given, and can't nobody tell me nothing else about it. You can teach me
Yeah.
something
Right.
for sure, but you can't tell me nothing about who I am, what I'm here to do.
Yeah. That's real.
What about you, Dia? As far as being that black educator, that black face in our community.
Um. So I think, I think what I realized early on when I first started dealing with youth is I take it back to an earlier conversation that we had before we were recording, and you had asked the question of, how many black male educators did we have? And I think it was like three or four. Um,
Yeah.
but I don't think so much of the number, but knowing that there's so few of us. It's not just few black male educators, but it's not a lot of positive black male role models. And so
That part.
or and so when we go to school, those and you look at statistics, and I don't know the statistics, but I'm sure there's tons of statistics about fatherlessness in the black household. And I think that when a child interacts with me, or they interact with Richard, they interact with another black male teacher. We are in essence the model of manhood for them, for black manhood. We might be the only black man that
Yeah.
has a lexicon beyond saying MF every other word. We might be the
Yeah.
only
Yeah.
black male that has a degree. We might be the only black male that has interacted with them on an intellectual level, on a love level, and an accountability level. And
Yeah.
so, and like ever, within within them 8 hours, or even just that dap in the hallway, or that moment of correction. And so it's a ministry. It's a ministry, and it's a responsibility. I feel like many are called, a few are chosen. And so knowing that we are the one, knowing that God has placed us in a position to affect lives, and to change mentalities and change mindsets, but ultimately, um, change, be in a position to potentially change the world. I take
Yeah.
that serious. I think, I majored in philosophy in in college, and I think one of the things that intrigued me is a lot of Western philosophy stem from, um, Socratic thinking, and I was always fascinated by how, Socrates, imparting, he had Aristotle and Plato, and from those three, they essentially changed the entirety of Western thought, just by those
Yeah.
three having thought provoking conversations, and having thought 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 provoking conversations with others. Um, it's just a responsibility that's so magnanimous. Um, it's hard. It's honestly, it's hard to articulate. It's like you are that one. Can you imagine being in a space where you're the only black female photographer? Any
I am.
Okay. So any black, so all right, so let's say that any black girl that comes to us and says that they want to be in your space, you're our only point of reference. All I can do is refer them back to you. So there's a responsibility in that for you to
Okay.
operate
I
in
can see that.
excellence. You understand? So there's a response. So how you so in that young lady, she's not just gonna look at how Kamisha takes pictures. She's gonna look at your swag. She's gonna look at your
Yeah.
style. She's gonna see how
Yeah.
you articulate your points, how you
Yeah.
how you tell a joke, how you interact, and that's a responsibility and mantle that you inadvertently carry. And that's the same with
Yeah.
black male educators. It goes beyond just teaching concepts that you can presumably learn on YouTube. It's it's
Okay.
it's about
Yeah.
it's about conveying an entire state of being, a mental philosophy, and a way of life, and being a father to the fatherless. The Bible has all kind of scriptures about just looking after orphans and widows, and there's
Yeah.
also huge punishments for those that abuse his children. And one of the things, like my mom said, um, because my mom's a minister, and
Yeah.
one thing she told me was, she said, if those babies don't get what God has put in you to give them, then that blood is on your hand.
Okay. So wait. Let me ask you this. So you
Yeah,
have all these deep thoughts
I
about,
wouldn't say deep. I would just yeah.
being, these thoughts about being a father to the fatherless. Did you grow up
Right.
without a father? Were you in a
So
single parent household? Is this why you have
yes,
such a deep connection?
yes and no. So my father did he was involved, but he didn't live in town. So I was
Okay.
I was raised by my mother, and
Okay.
I visited my father. I stayed with him during the summer.
Okay.
And then I stayed with him summer, Thanksgiving, spring break. So,
Okay.
the majority of
Okay.
my time was spent with my mother, like the educational piece. And then my grandfather, um, you know,
That
he
was like
he
your everyday father
he was
figure.
my everyday father figure. So he picked me up
Okay.
from school every day.
Okay.
But even thing about it is, even with my father, even with my grandfather's involvement in my life,
Yeah.
and my mother's, there's just a biological attachment that kids just have with their a necessity that kids have with their biological parents, that they want and need to have them continually and daily in
I
their
was just
lives,
going
no
to ask
matter the
that.
level of involvement. Like I
Yeah.
see it with kids I deal with. Like, it's just what it is. So even and my dad, he was always a phone call away, but just having that continual presence of having my father in the house, come home every night, no, I didn't have that.
So what about you, Richard? So I mean, as far as like you're a figure to the fatherless, essentially. Also, is it because you or were you in a two-parent household, or what was your
That's a part of my trauma.
upbringing?
You triggering my trauma. You gonna trigger the inner
I'm
trauma.
sorry. I'm sorry. I'm
I
sorry.
ain't gonna drop a tear. I'm a thug. I ain't gonna drop no tears.
I
Uh,
got you. I got
but
you. I
yeah,
got you.
I
I
did not
got
have
you,
a
dog.
father growing up. But my mom and dad, they were married. They had all of us through marriage. Um,
Okay. That's what's
uh,
up.
and then they were married for 11, 12 years, and then they got divorced. My dad left crazy, 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 crazy. He left
Okay.
on Easter Sunday when I was 7 years old. I remember we went to church, came up from church, he threw stuff in the back of the truck, and my man was out. And so we played a little bit of back and forth because he had like a little apartment with his other little thing or whatever. And
Yeah.
then he moved out the state, and I ain't seen him, didn't hear from him until I'm not gonna. So grew up at the seventh. My big brothers was my daddy. My oldest brother is 7 years older than me, so he was already a
Okay.
teenager. So big brother played daddy, and I had another brother 3 years older than me. So he was typical big brother, put me in the headlock, choke me out. This stuff big brothers do.
Okay.
But big
Right.
brother
Right.
was like
Right.
daddy, so he had to like make sure we cleaned the house, and he had to do all the stuff at 14, 15 years old. Mom was at work, working two jobs. He had to make sure we was get us to school, do all the stuff. And so that was my model
Yeah.
of a dad, and he always went to make sure we weren't without. And so, but I did like my next door neighbor had their daddy. Across the street had his daddy. My best friend lived with his daddy, so I had all these males in my life. But like Dion said,
That's dope.
well, none of them my male. You know what I mean? They would give me advice and show me how to fight and do all the. My next door neighbor was a boxer. He used to make us put on boxing gloves in the front yard and scrap. He was like, "Ain't no guns,
Yeah.
y'all gonna scrap in the front yard." So we all knew how to throw hands, but he wasn't my
Yeah.
male. And so that was
Right.
the chip on my shoulder that I had growing up. Like, man, I don't need no daddy. But I knew there's some things that I didn't know because I didn't have a male in the house, daddy in the house. And so I get married. I'm 2 kids deep, and my wife, she comes
Yeah.
from a strong two-parent home. Her parents been married 40-some years, so she has
Yeah.
a completely different purview on like marriage and child rearing. And so when my oldest daughter, she was like 7 or 8.
Yeah.
Uh, no, she wasn't even that old. She was probably about 7. And she said, "Daddy, uh, we go to grandma and grandpa's house. Where's my other grandpa?" I said, "You only got one grandpa. Don't even trip about it." She said, "But I got grandma and grandpa over there. How come where's my other grandpa?" And so I knew where he was. I knew where he lived. You know, he lived out of state, but I knew if I wanted to, I can get his information. I just chose not to because, nigga, why? You know, that was just me. And so, but then my daughter looked at me and said, "I want other grandpa." I said, "Damn." You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And so
yeah.
I called a couple folks and I got his number. And we went down to the state he was living in. We took a whole family road trip, me and my wife, my 2 kids. And we drove, 12, 13 hours to go see him. And
Yeah.
uh, we had the whole, he did all the crying. "I'm sorry, forget, blah, blah, blah." I said, "Listen, I'm 30 something now. Listen, I don't need none of that. I needed that when I was 7, 8, when I was 12 years old. I don't need none of that now. I'm here.
Right.
Listen, forgive it. Jesus loves. It is what it made me better. I'm good on that.
Right.
But you got to make it right with her. Because this is what I care about. And I smack any one of these niggas for her. And that's just real. Excuse my language. That's just real. Anybody can get
Yeah.
it for my
Yeah.
daughter. Anybody. Lock me up."
Anybody.
And so, like, I want other
Anybody.
grandpa. And so, because I was able to like genuinely forgive, because I was like 30 something. By this time, we over the whole, why wasn't you there? No, we passed that
Right.
uh,
Right. 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 Right.
so, conversation. And my man's is a cool dude. Like, there's so much of my personality, so much of my charisma, so much is like the way I think.
Yeah. That
Always,
part.
my
Yeah.
mom is like,
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, 100% him. Like, yo, I'm like, man, you a bad, so you was a bad boy when you was your boy. It's a good thing I didn't have him around. If I'd had him around,
Right. Right.
listen, it'd have been bad. It'd have been all bad for these streets.
No good.
It
Nobody
would
would
have been a
have.
wrap.
No
It'd
good.
have been a
No
wrap.
good.
So we
Wouldn't even
was
have a
just
ring
going
on your
very
finger.
close. We connected. We talk on a regular basis. We go down there a couple times, to see him. He calls. He's a phenomenal grandfather now. He's a great
That's what's
grandfather.
up.
He wasn't nothing as a
Oh,
daddy, but that does drive me to make sure whatever it is I have, somebody needs. Somebody needs
yeah,
what I got.
yeah,
I got to make sure they get it. So I make sure my kids got super daddy. People, my peers be like, oh, you trying to be super daddy? I'm at a basketball game right
you're
now
dang right,
because
right.
my daughter was like, please, can we go to the high school game? My daughter's a freshman. I was like, you know what? We're gonna go to the game. I want to be at home chilling, but they want to go to the game, so I'm at the game because that's
That's
just
what's
what
up.
I do as a father, and I need to make sure whatever these kids need, they might have two parents in the home or whatever. I got something, I got a gift that I'm not sitting on, and they're gonna get whatever it is. But
Yeah,
that does drive. I operate as a father to everybody. Anybody
yeah,
can get a whooping
yeah.
with love.
So I
Anybody can.
mean, both of y'all, both of y'all are males, in the classroom. Do you really think it makes a difference? Single parent versus two parent household. I remember being at the conference that we were just at, and one of the young ladies stood up and was like, I'm a proud prodigy of a single parent household, and I turned out great. I didn't need my other parent. So, do you think they say that from a place of hurt? Because that's always my diagnosis, that people say that from a place of hurt. Like, forget that dude. I don't need him. I don't need one parent. But as y'all watch the classroom and you see these kids that do come from the single parent household, do you really think it makes a difference?
100%. Uh, yeah, absolutely. And I would say this. I would say I would be that same. I would say I would stand up in front of anybody and say I'm a proud success of a single parent household, but by no means I would say that that is the standard or the way that household should be. I think that for a specific purpose and design, I think that God
Yeah,
wanted me to go through a specific, wanted me to feel the feelings of living in a single parent household so that I
yeah,
could minister and articulate to youth for that. So I think of it's no different than like somebody that goes through some type of exorbitant level of trauma. That doesn't mean that going through abuse is okay. It
yeah,
just molded and shaped who they are. So I think that I'm by no means an advocate. I can definitely you can definitely see a difference um, when there's a balance, and there's a reason that it's designed like that. But yeah, Rich
Yeah, I
said
agree
his
with
all
that.
battery
right.
died, so I want you
Yeah, I'm on my
to get
cell
the,
phone. My fault. Should
yeah.
have been at
He
home
said
I
his
chilling.
get
So I
it.
battery
got.
died, so I want to.
Where
He
your
said,
battery pack at, bro?
I got to. I ain't the technology guru like you, Kamisha. You gotta bless me with one.
Ah,
right,
you got.
right.
I got you. Christmas is coming up, man.
But you know what?
That's
This
my.
we right on we right on time. We said we was gonna do 45 minutes, so you could take us on home, Rich.
Okay. What was that last little question? Give me a quick blurb, because I kind of got caught up
So
with
so
Dion.
It
she,
was
she
just being from a two parent household. Do it really matter?
Oh, yeah. I think just like Dion said, I tell you, my mom did a great job raising me, and I don't think nobody could have done it better. And I feel like I am who I am. I know I am who I am because of her and the things that she's instilled in
Yeah,
me. But it definitely would have been different if I'd have had dad right there. It's different when I see a dad come in the room with these conferences. You know what I'm saying? That's just
yeah,
like the
yeah,
mood change, and that's just
yeah,
what it is. So yeah, single parent, dual parent, you can still be great, but there is something that comes with that balance. I just think that's just a natural kind of harmonious piece. But I don't hold that like this is why you're not meeting the metric. This is why you are meeting the metric. You can still meet the metric.
yeah,
That's just different
yeah.
because we got to navigate it a little bit differently. That's all.
Even disciplinary actions, like a child may act out a certain way because of XYZ or whatever. Do you guys have to deal with that? Because I mean, do you
yeah.
put
Hundred
that
percent.
on they came from a single parent household, this is why they act like that, or they have two parents and they still act like that, or like, is there a difference in the kids whether they come from
100.
a one
Yeah,
or two
yeah.
parent?
It's a difference. You got to have yours. That's the thing. You got to have your two parents.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, it is a difference, and it expresses itself in different ways.
Yeah,
We see it on the extreme ends, but yeah, there's definitely a difference. Now, I wouldn't say like it's not always like, oh, if you had your daddy, you would be this. Because there's people that
Yeah.
have both parents and
Still,
they
yeah.
can't figure it out. And then but it
Right.
definitely makes a difference when as a child you're being raised and steered in a certain direction. It's like we have the discussion. Me and Rich talked about what are kids being raised to be. What's the intentionality behind what
Well,
parents put into their kids? You know, Joe Jackson is an extreme example, but Daddy Joe raised Michael Jackson them to sing some songs.
well,
Jack Kennedy raised his sons to be presidents. So
well.
what's the intentionality behind what and how you're raising your kids? Are we raised? How do people? If you raising your, are you raising your kids? Or you being a glorified babysitter? And I think
Well,
when somebody's raising their kids, and there's an intentionality
yeah.
with the mother and the father, and in the value set and the structure and what they want their kids to be, their kids ain't got no choice to fall in line when those seeds are planted.
Yeah, but like you said,
Okay, okay.
anybody can be successful. You got some people with no parents; they just grandparents, or they might just be
Right.
a big sibling
Yeah,
or
that's true.
cousins. And so
That's true.
I think it's like they said, how what are you doing with yours? What are you doing with yours?
Yeah,
Whether it's
yeah,
and hey, today's society it might be two mamas or two daddies. You never know. So they might have double daddies in the
yeah,
house.
yeah. That's
You
true.
know, whatever floats your
That's
boat.
true.
Judgment free,
Right,
judgment free.
right, right. Of course,
Like I said,
always,
this
always.
kids. What are you raising them to be, or are they just existing? And if we're not, and that's the same thing for educators. Who are you grooming your students to be? Right? Who are you? Are you intentional about? I'm intentional about the way I walk into a classroom. Right? We have
Yeah,
to be intentional about our interactions because I need to make sure these students see me in a specific light, so that way I can gauge what they get from me. I'm in control of that. If I want to come in the room silly
right.
and distracted, I'm gonna do that. It's not an accident I come in the room silly. I just knew your classroom needed some silliness. Or I may come in and tighten it
Right.
up because your room needs to be tightened up. So I'm intentional about the way I walk into a room. I'm intentional about the way I deliver myself. Make sure I wear my
Yeah,
tie every Wednesday so they see me. Jay-Z said I do it for the culture
that's cool.
to let them know what it look
That's
like
cool.
when what I'm saying? They're gonna see, dude, they
That's
was
cool.
always wear ties. And I do it on purpose.
That's
So if
cool.
we got to be
That's
intentional
cool.
about our educational spaces.
All right. So as we wrap up our successful part one, what do they have to look forward to next time, Dion?
Authentic conversation, realness, whatever y'all want to talk about. No, I shouldn't say that. We'll have something cooked up. We'll have something cooked up because I do believe in being like we said about intentionality and raising kids. We want to be intentional with this
Yeah.
podcast and be intentional about the information that we impart. So
Yeah.
we'll huddle, come up with something good, and hopefully we can leave. We can plant or drop some seeds.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. You too, Richard.
Yes, yeah. And I'm just hoping to get some folks in here because again, if we just drop by ideas off each other all day long, what I mean, we ain't going nowhere with it. So
Yeah.
let's get some diverse voices, some diverse ideas, people to push or challenge the
Yep.
thinking or the thought, and we can just come out with some dynamics. So you're gonna see people come in. So anybody watching, if you want to come in and drop your perspective, do that. No, make sure you got
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
qualified opinion. Make sure you got a qualified opinion. We can have all
Yeah,
those
yeah.
There you
conversations,
go.
Yeah, we ain't gonna have Ned the Wino can't come
challenge.
on here.
Why? He a person too.
Ned the
He used to
Wino.
be, bro. He used to be a person too. Come on now. He was a person. He is a
Right,
person.
right,
He
right.
is somebody. All
Would you
right, fellas. Well,
would
I
you let Ned the
appreciate it.
Wino? Would you
I
let Ned the
would.
Wino teach
I
your
would.
daughters?
I don't
Absolutely
discriminate
not.
like y'all. I don't
Uh,
discriminate like y'all. I don't
oh, okay.
discriminate like y'all. Yeah, 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 yeah. Well, I appreciate y'all.
All right.
Um, until next time.
All right, Doctor Kamisha,
Yes,
Doctor
Yes,
yes, man.
sir.
Doctor Tyner, Doctor Abram.
Yes,
That's it.
sir.
One day, one
Dr.
day,
Whitted.
One
one
day,
day.
name it and claim it.
Name it and claim
Name
it.
it and claim
All right, y'all. I'm gonna get
it. All
back to
right,
these
all
kids.
right.
Love.
Okay.
All right.
One
Appreciate it.
love. Yep. So do we got to hit leave studio?
Wait.